for Emmy award-winning composer, Mr. Lucas Cantor. There he is, everybody. He's doing the thing, everyone. He's doing the thing. He's doing the thing where he keeps himself muted.
I was about to ask if we were on because I was just jamming out to Hot Boy Summer, and I just got distracted. But I'm glad. Sorry, I'm glad I caught it.
Hot Boy Summer is an interesting composition. It embodies.
Got it right there.
There it is, folks.
Yeah.
Hot Boy Summer embodies the. Okay, I'm not gonna do that. Besides, I don't have the words to do that. So, I have these stupid sunglasses on. Get these off. Still, I still have those on. It's gonna be hot. Yeah, thank you. Your favorite today. Yeah, man. Thank you for listening to it. By the way, and it's a silly song that. It was just fun. I'm into that that throwback synthwave 80s type stuff that's sort of reemerging, especially when you see like right after Stranger Things, right? Like that whole genre just sort of exploded back onto it. And I had been following it. I don't know, like are you you're in that field where you're composing for these TV shows. Have you ever seen such a because it's not like an explosion, but maybe it is because you're definitely hearing these pop artists like The Weeknd just released an album that has all those old school those old Yamaha synths and the old drum machines and stuff is really made an emergence. Have you ever seen such an effect a show has had on the music of like a culture? I mean, I don't know if it's that. I don't know if it's Stranger Things, but like it definitely does seem to be a correlation between the rise of that sort of 80s synthwave pop thing coming back and seeing it in sort of the mainstream music world. Hi.
How's it going? How you doing? That was a good question.
Maybe.
And yes, so I was actually, as you were asking that question, my plan was when you got to the end of it, I was just going to say yes, I have.
Whether or not you have, or
I just leave it there.
Yes.
But yeah, the answer is yeah. Stranger Things did have a huge effect on music in general and what clients are asking for and what people expect to hear. But there's one every couple of years,
right,
that does that. When I first moved to LA, it was Inception. Was the thing like that? Yeah. Everybody wanted something like that, and then it's often something that Hans Zimmer does because he's really good with sort of new sounds and that kind of thing. And then Stranger Things was a big one that was in vogue for a long time. It really is just like kind of whoever's popular, and it's totally cyclical. And analog synths never really went away. The Stranger Things guys, I'm blanking on their names.
I can't
Newton
remember.
Brothers. Is it the Newton Brothers?
I know they're out of Austin.
Yeah, so I think it is the Newton Brothers, but
let me see.
They were it was great. It's a great score, and working with analog synths for TV is really hard because one of the things that we have grown accustomed to doing is having everything in a DAW and having everything be editable and movable. And with analog synths, you're basically dealing with a performance that you record.
Yes.
So
yes, that's it.
Did you get their name?
Duffer, Matt and Ross Duffer.
No, those are the directors.
Oh, that's the directors. Those
are
the writers. Oh yeah, Stranger Things music. My bad. This is how good of a journalist I am. The first thing I see on Google, yeah, that's it. Duffer. We're going with Duffer. Duffer's.
We'll see who finds it faster.
Yeah.
I mean, I should know it. I'm technically, allegedly, I'm a professional television composer, so I should probably have this one.
But how can you remember all those things? Like there's just too much to remember. I can't believe how.
All right, I'm 2 seconds away from it. Kyle Dixon and Michael Stein. I thought that they went by the Newton Brothers or something, but I think the Newton Brothers are different people. So anyway, Kyle Dixon and Michael Stein. That's who it is.
Well, there you go. We got to the bottom of that.
There's like a band name that they have, but that's
yes, yeah. Because I remember even going and listening to their music because I was like, wow, I really dig this.
Yeah, they're great.
um there was also a period where there was like, this is what I noticed I saw in a lot of like car commercials, is the ukulele and like found sound type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Was that ever anything that you had to like deal with, where you're like, now I gotta play
Yeah,
this ukulele?
I've done all of that shit. I have done like every like thing that you can, every like popular thing that you can imagine. I've done some version of it at some point
Yeah.
in my career. And yeah, I play ukulele. I've got a, I got a toy piano in here somewhere.
With the ding ding
Yeah.
ding ding
Um,
ding.
and that's, yeah, that was definitely a style. And I don't even really know where that came from, but there's something about like these sort of acoustic instruments that really permeated indie films for a while. And the reason for that is because it's easy for one person to record. What seems to be seriously, what seems to have been the style in the last like 30 years is that things that one person can basically do in a laptop, and the capability of that has grown exponentially every year. So where 20 years ago, 15 years ago, like recording overdubbed guitars and maybe like some samples of single attack instruments that sound good, like a glockenspiel sample sounds pretty realistic because there's only one way to hit a glockenspiel, really. And so the, like that kind of sound that you just described, the ukulele and the glock and other, little found objects, was pretty easy to do with samples. Now you can do basically anything with samples. And you can make it pretty convincing. And so you've seen the score for Loki. My wife and I were watching it, and I love that score, by the way. I think she did a fantastic job. I'm not sure that there are many live instruments on that score. Like there are definitely some, but I think a lot of it is our sampled instruments, and I think by design, like it's like it makes the show. I think it gives it a certain vibe. But yeah, that's like something that would have been like when they were doing that for TV movies 20 years ago, the samples just didn't sound very good. Now they have a lot of character. And if you want to look at a popular example of if you want to look at a popular example of a film that was scored entirely with sampled instruments that sounds horrible and sounded horrible at the time, even though the actual content of the score was fantastic, you have to look no further than Rob Reiner's Princess Bride.
I'm writing it down.
That was done with like the Yamaha, or the Roland, the Roland samples of probably like a D90. Is that what was it called? Or a P90? And it has a sound, but it doesn't sound like those instruments. It's but it's also a great score. They're doing it live at the Hollywood Bowl this year, and I'm tempted to go just to see like, how do you perform this score live that was never intended to be performed live.
Right. That's interesting too. And what's funny is that like now when I'm dealing with people, like right now I'm having someone write horns for me, or horn parts for me, and they're just gonna do it all MIDI and chart it for me, and then I'm gonna hire someone on Fiverr to blow it for me, and he's a percussionist. So like, it's interesting now that the way that these things can be utilized.
You might not be pleased with the results of that process.
Well, you know what? It's my first time doing it like that. I mean, usually because I can record my own stuff, I can engineer my own projects, and usually I would just have them come to my studio. But now in the time of COVID, and I don't have a studio like that anymore, it's just like, this is my way forward, and I'm just trying it out. What, in your opinion, why do you think I'm not going to be happy?
I think if you're going to have someone on Fiverr, like, do the parts for you, I mean, you're having someone write the parts.
So my friend, who's the drummer of my band, but he's also like a composer, but he's mostly a percussionist, and he can write and chart out, and he writes pretty good funk horn lines. I didn't just be like, hey, drummer, write these horn lines for my funk song. I've heard him compose like different horn lines for different songs.
Yeah, I guess that's not the bottleneck. I feel like, with any type of music, any type of recording, it's only as good as the performance. So like, anyone who's on Fiverr who's willing to do it for super cheap, probably not going to do a fantastic job. Maybe they will, like maybe you'll get lucky, but I always, that's where when I write music, that's where I spend my money. I always spend my money on players, because you can, players and increasingly now orchestrators, because as I work with larger ensembles, you just need someone to keep the car on the road. Because I can write this stuff, but like getting it from my DAW to on a music stand is another process that I can do pretty well, but the orchestrator that I hire can do it really, really well
Right.
and about 10 times faster than me.
Right.
So that's yeah.
And why make more work for yourself that you're gonna do, not as great as a job as someone who you can just have someone come in and just knock it out. It's like, why spread yourself thin just to sort of create this mediocre product when you could just hire the right person to just get it done and nail it.
Yeah, and you've got to, you've only got so many decisions you can make in a day, and so the more of those that are creative decisions about the project you're working on, the better the project's going to be.
Yeah, yeah. That's one thing that I've been pretty bad at is like delegating parts and because I can play most of the parts myself, except when it comes to horns and strings and stuff, so or violins and stuff like that. But that's a whole different realm for me. So
you just described like the whole orchestra.
Yeah, I know. I can do everything but the orchestra.
I can do everything except for 30 or 40 of these instruments. So what you're saying is you can play guitar and keyboards. Gotcha.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yes, I am a rhythm section. That is me. No, but for me, delegating has been one of those things that I've had to learn to do. Did it take you a while to sort of learn the most efficient way to run a project? And I know projects vary from project to projects, and but how did you figure out not to take on everything? And did you ever have that problem?
No, I never had that problem. And I don't know any other successful musician that has ever had to learn anything new as they go. Everyone I know is just really, really good at everything that they did musically immediately. I'm totally fucking with you. No, of course I had to. Of course it was a learning curve.
He's a professional. He knows.
I just realized that I look like I have some weird 80s side haircut because I've got one headphone on and one headphone off.
It works.
And so that just is what it is. Okay, we're just gonna live with that.
It looks good. Man.
But the answer to your question is there are a lot of conventions and ways that people in different cities and different recording centers work to make recording music and composing music and getting it from the pen to the DAW to the stage to the record to make that process as smooth as possible. And it's a little bit different in every city, and it's very specific. You just have to learn it. So my serious answer to your question is that I tried to figure it out myself when I lived in New York, and I moved to LA because I didn't feel like I was making much progress. I was trying to do things, and I was well, I could experiment with this for 100 years, and I'd probably come up with the system that they are already using somewhere else. And I learned this because someone invited me to a big orchestra session in Los Angeles, and I went, and it was a session for a Disney movie. So it was 96 players in Warner Brothers, which has a live room, the size of the house I grew up in, and it was just a really streamlined and efficient process where a lot of the nonsense was dealt with ahead of time, and really only creative decisions had to be made in the room.
Yeah.
And so there are really specific ways, and I can't describe them all, but one of the learning curves of when I hire someone new to be my assistant or something, pretty much the reason that they would come work for me and the thing that they learn by working for me is that process and how I do things, which is how everyone in LA more or less does things. And then the reason that I hire, like I said, an orchestrator is there are, the guy I use a lot now, his name, there's two orchestrators. My sort of high budget one is a guy named Brad Dector, who is, if his name's Brad Dector, go on IMDb and look at the 300 films he has orchestrated. He's done everything you've ever heard of, and he's absolutely amazing. Nice. And then I use another guy named John Houston, who's a composer and an orchestrator, and he's also fantastic and a little bit younger. But the reason that these guys are great is that they there are certain ways that we work together that are already that are just established, and we don't have to have conversations about a lot of things. So because we just know how the score is supposed to look. We know John knows what font it's supposed to be in, and all that, all that kind of stuff, that these details really make a difference to players.
Right.
Yeah. So to answer your question, it takes a really long time and a lot of sustained effort to get that dialed in. And the best way to learn it is to learn it from someone else and to sort of see if you can apprentice yourself to someone, or like just read a lot of books and just kind of study up on the process. Because information about it exists, and it's not to say that the way that I do it is the way that everyone has to do it, but the way that everyone who I know who's successful does it is like a pretty small variation on the way that I do it. Everyone has their own specific workflow, but the broad strokes are pretty much the same.
Where did you, so you were saying that in New York you sort of left New York because you felt like you weren't really doing what you wanted. What were you doing in New York, and what was it that sort of made you so frustrated?
Yeah, I was working on, well, what made me frustrated was very simple, that like the music I was making, I just didn't feel like it was coming out as good as other people's music.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, in my head, this sounds great. When I actually get it onto what do you put it onto now? A hard drive? I don't know. When I actually get it done,
right,
it just doesn't sound as good as I wanted it to. And I tried, I mean, I've done everything. I tried like pretty much the exact process that you just described. I've done that,
right, right.
And that's why I said you weren't going to be happy with the result, because I did that and wasn't happy with the result.
Yeah.
It wasn't Fiverr, but it was, same idea.
Right.
And so, yeah, I was just frustrated that I was like, well, other people are able to do this better than me. And, it's probably not because they're geniuses. It's probably because they know stuff that I don't know.
Right.
So, I was right. Some of them are geniuses, but that also you could sit Mozart down at my desk and he's not really going to be able to do anything with it.
Right.
So like, because there is like once you teach him how to use the DAW, he'll be able to make better music than anybody.
Right.
But the music part is hard. The DAW part is a thing you can learn on YouTube.
Right. Right.
So that's really kind of what I thought was that. And because I'm not the kind of person who can learn stuff off of YouTube videos very easily, I figured I'd go work for someone and just see if I could get in the thick of it for a while.
Yeah.
And that worked.
Oh, thank you, Dead Side Blues, for that host. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Sweet. What does that mean?
That means that someone, another streamer has decided to host this conversation on their channel. So anybody who goes to Dead Side Blues' channel will see this conversation. So
thank you, Dead Side Blues. So you guys are now both a part of what I think is my Twitch world premiere, because I don't think I've ever streamed anything on Twitch before. So
are you familiar with Twitch at all?
I'm aware that it exists, yes.
Twitch exists. Yeah, that's most people. It's interesting. When I first started podcasting, which was not very long ago, like 6 or 7 years ago, people knew what podcasts were, but they didn't know, like, most people were like, what's a and you're just sort of like internet radio, TV, internet radio, basically. And now it's like, it's come back around where it's like, now I'm on Twitch, and now it's like nobody knows what Twitch is. And I have a feeling in like the next 5 years, probably everybody's going to know what Twitch is. Maybe, unless something else comes by that does it better. But that's not happening anyways. But yeah, what do you know about this platform other than it exists?
So it's called Twitch. And I know that something about gamers, like the gamers tend to like it. And one of my good friends, she's the godmother of one of my children, had a boyfriend who really wanted to be a professional Twitch streamer. So he was what we in the business actually refer to as an unemployed loser. And and I'm not saying that if you are a professional Twitch streamer, you're unemployed, like that's fantastic if you can do that. But he was not able to make it work. So
there's a difference between wanting to do something and then doing it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't want to shit on this guy too much, but he was the kind of person that like he wanted to have done something, but had no interest in actually doing it.
Yeah. That seems like
I sympathize with.
That seems to be a lot of people in Southern California. I lived in Southern California for about 13 years.
Hey, you know what? On behalf of all the people south of the Tehachapi Mountains, to all the people in whatever the fuck bumfuck place you're from, go fuck yourself.
Hey, no. I lived in San Diego for about 13 years, and there's so many people out there that want to be something more, and they're always chasing that SoCal dream. And I've worked in LA a few times, and obviously not on the level you are, but I got to play the Key Club when that was a thing, and other place. I can't remember. Who gives a fuck?
So why is Will Smith floating around right now? What's happening? What's going on?
Okay.
Like there was some like cartoon boxer that went the other way.
These are called emotes. They're like little emojis that people put out, and
nice.
And it's sort of like your calling cards. You can sort of put it. I'll just release some of.
So wait, are these like people who are watching are sending these things across the screens?
They're sending them across the screen.
Nice.
And we even got a question from somebody.
Oh yeah, send more. I love it. Now that I know that it's fan interaction, I just didn't know what was happening.
I know you're like moving your head. You're like, wait, what?
No, I thought I was gonna have to fight that guy.
Sorry, I didn't know this is what this was about, but here we go.
AB start. I got it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm ready. Infinite powers.
Hell yeah, we're going Contra on that ass. Okay. Anyways,
so I sympathize with you. With like two things. First of all, if you shit on Southern California and you're not from here, obviously I'm gonna just argue with you.
I'm not
on
from
the other
here,
hand,
but
no, but on the other hand, you're totally
it.
right. Like I'm completely. If you would just let me say that first, I would have said the exact same thing. So yeah, it's there is a lot of one of the things that I have noticed since I moved out here, because when I moved out here, my friends were like, well, there's going to be a lot of competition. There's a lot of musicians out there and there's a lot of composers out there. And the thing that I realized is that, there are a lot of people who move out here to do a thing, but there are not a lot of people who put in the work to actually do it. There's a lot of people who want to be rich and famous musicians, but there's not a lot of people who want to learn how to play music. Or there's less. There are a lot, but there's less of them. And it's like, saying that I don't remember who said this, but it was the difference between wanting to be, being fascinated by the tales of Homer, the Iliad and the Odyssey, and saying, oh, I love this. I could dedicate my life to studying this. It's the difference between having that thought and then sitting down and learning how to speak and read ancient Greek.
Yeah.
You have to learn to read ancient Greek if you want to study Homer on a serious level. Right. But that is quite a big endeavor, and it's the same thing out here. I meet a lot of people still to this day who, will say like, I don't understand what's going on, man. I mean, I moved out to LA. I live in the right neighborhood. I've got all these social media followers. I'm doing all this stuff. I'm going to the right parties, and I just don't understand why it's not happening for me. And then I'll check out their demo, and I'm like, well, I think I've solved the mystery here. Like you forgot to get good at making music. That's like a prerequisite. Everyone who is successful in this business, you can say what you will about like, this person and that person is good or bad, but everyone who is a successful musician is good at making music, or at least good at entertaining a crowd. Mm-hmm. And like I've been working on I've been checking out Meek Mill a lot, which is out of character for me, but and like he's not like his shit is just fantastic. Like it's like it might not be your style, but like what he does extremely well and better than most people, and that's why he's so popular. And it's the same thing with with film music. Like if you have the attitude that film music is sort of like kind of whatever music that you put on a movie to make schmaltzy scenes more schmaltzy, then no director wants to work with someone like that, and no audience wants to watch a movie that is scored that way. So if you have the like attitude that like I'm going to be the best at this thing that I do, then that's what makes people want to work with you. And then you've got to back it up by trying.
Try. You also got to like put in the effort. It's like, because you can be the best at anything, but if you're not going to put in the effort, then it doesn't matter. You can be the best in your bedroom. Congratulations. And which is fine. If that's what you're shooting for in life, if you want to be the best player in your bedroom, that's cool. You know what I mean?
You already are. Congratulations. You made it.
Yep. Congrats. You're the drum whisperer. Yeah, exactly. So if anybody is interested in following Lucas on IG, and you can see his IDM, god damn it, IMDb credits, I made sure to add in there. So go ahead. It's
thank you.
!LC if you guys are interested in following and finding out a little bit more of Lucas's background. He is an Emmy award-winning composer. Emmy. Now, is it a daytime Emmy or is it an Emmy?
Oh, well, which ones are yours? It sounds like you're judging me a little bit.
Okay. By the way, congratulations, my friend. I don't know what a daytime Emmy is either. I just canceled. Yeah, there it is. Thank you, Reina. You're right.
Thank you, someone.
Reina redeemed a cancel. Thank you. Yeah, I deserve that. I deserve that. Anyways,
I can actually give you like a great deal of detail on which Emmys are which, if you like.
Sure.
But the bottom line is, I have sports Emmys, which are Emmys that are issued by the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. I think that's right. As opposed to primetime Emmys, which are issued by the American Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, which you would think would be the same people, but it's not. And it is true that the ones that I have. Yeah, statue.
No, I mean, is it the same one? Is it the same one?
So it's the same statue. You get the same big statue, and the small Emmys are for like local. Like if you win, if you're like wherever you are, like you have like a local news team.
Yeah.
If they win an Emmy, they get a little Emmy.
I got you.
But an Emmy is an Emmy. It still means that your product was voted by your peers to be the best of that year. So, absolutely. So it's an accomplishment. Mine are from working on the Olympics. So,
which is amazing.
It's very cool. I'm very proud of them. I think, I wasn't the executive producer of the Olympics. It probably would have continued to happen whether I was there or not.
Yeah.
But I was part of a team that did something amazing. So,
absolutely.
And if you're like, I think David Price on the Dodgers got a World Series ring, even though he sat out last year.
Right. Hey, so he was there. He was there.
Whatever. He was part of the team. He was watching it on TV.
And he's forever a win. He's a forever a winner of that prize. And
it was going to be his second World Series ring anyway. So.
So whatever. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, like, that idea. What did you go to like a ceremony, or is it something they just like UPS to your door or something?
Yeah, well, it was both actually. So I did go, but it's because I was an associate producer on the games that I won an Emmy for on both of them. And so they can't have 30 people going up there and making speeches. So the executive producer goes up and collects the Emmy, and but you get invited, you can watch, and then you have to order it, and you also have to pay for it.
Oh my God. Can I ask how much it costs?
Yeah, Emmys cost between $5. I mean, they change every year, but it's like between $500 and $600.
Oh my God, yeah. Asshole! Here's this award, now pay us.
That's one of the ways they make their money.
Wow.
But
I didn't know that. That's really cool.
But yeah, it's like any award show. It's like people have this idea that something like the Emmys or the Oscars are these like cultural institutions that are fairly managed by someone Daniel. With like government level objectivity, but really, they're just ways for industries to honor themselves. I mean, I don't know if you watch The Office, but like the Emmys are just the Dundies for a much larger organization.
Yeah. Hold on. I got Daniel. What is this? What are you doing, bro?
What's going on, Daniel?
I gotta delete this message, bro.
What did he say?
I don't want to repeat it, but it's something about violence, and I don't want to repeat it. But
oh yeah,
it's like
what about this conversation is going to lead to violence?
I think they're trying to be quaint, but look, I deleted your message. You can hang out, but just cool it with the weird shit. Okay, that was a weird thing. It wasn't violent. You just said something about bombing a place. Okay, I'm not.
I did.
I think
Who said that?
Not you. It was Daniel.
Oh.
Dan, look. I'm not hating. Thank you for the bit, but like it might be biblical, but you know what? I misconstrued it. So let's just work past it. You're welcome to hang out.
There's a lot of violence in the Bible, and so just because it's biblical doesn't mean it's not violence.
Exactly. The Bible is full of violence. But in any way, Daniel, thank you for sharing whatever that was. But contribute to the conversation and leave the weird biblical shit for someone else. What the fuck? Don't ruin an interview for Neil Rel. Yeah, I know, but I just, I don't want Daniel to go away and think that I hate him. I don't want that in my chat. So
hey, we've all hit send and then thought better of it. So we've all been there, Daniel. Don't worry about it.
No, I'm sure Daniel didn't mean anything horrible by it. I hope, but Penny, thank you so much for those 200 biddies. I do appreciate that. Again, Daniel, you're more than welcome to hang out here, but I don't know what that was. If I misconstrued it, my apologies. But anyways, And of course, I forgot what we were talking about. We were talking about Emmys, right?
We're talking about Emmys, and yeah, just about how the violent thought that it inspires in me every time I think about. No, we never were talking about that.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead. Okay, well, if you want to keep bidding, I'm turning off the thing. That's fine. Just well, here's the weird thing too. Is that you've been shadow banned by Twitch. That tells me something else as well, Daniel. If you're being shadow banned by Twitch, that also tells me something else. I know. Daniel's just trying to co-opt the conversation. It's fine. It's fun. Can you talk about music, please? Yes, we can talk about.
I actually want to talk about how I've been shadow banned by Twitch, which like just because I don't really know what Twitch is, or nor do I have an account on Twitch.
Right.
People aren't letting me express myself. So
I think so. I think you're right. I think we're being shadow banned by Daniel. Daniel, stop shadow banning us. We're trying to do some shit. No, but
all right. So where were we? We should probably talk about music, right?
Nothing against the Bible, guys. I wasn't trying to shit on the Bible. Okay, everyone.
I'll shit on the Bible. I will take that. I'll take that heat. You can email me through my website. I will shit on the Bible all day long.
There's
that may not be the official position of this show, but that is.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not here to offend anybody per se, but like it's not a Bible type show. I shit on the Bible.
If you want to go to church on Sunday and do your thing, like God bless you. Right. That's fantastic.
Right.
Enjoy.
Exactly. Yeah. But I don't want it in my fucking chat. Shitonthebible.com. All right. You guys are getting ridiculous. You guys are.
Wait, there's a shit on the Bible. Okay, hold on. Can we like just take a moment and just see what shitonthebible.com has to say?
It's nothing. It's my mod. She's being cute. She just put a fake link in the. I clicked on it as well.
Okay, good.
I had to click on it because that'd be tight. Much love to everyone. Go believe in God or Allah or the flying spaghetti monster. Mwah, love you. Please keep doing it. I don't care. It's great. Congratulations.
For anyone who wants a tithe, if you want to send your tithes directly to me, I will forward them on.
Straight to God.
So, you could just PayPal me. I will send it straight up to whatever God you believe in. No service charge, no nothing.
Nothing. Straight up, baby. Drip, drip. Okay. Anyways, no, the Emmy and the award thing is really weird, man, because it's like I've never won an award like that. I've
not yet.
Well, I've won like a grant award, so that's something.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it was great. It was an artist grant for the show, so I'm very proud of that. But it's like I've read books about it, read people's experience with it, and I really love Amy Poehler's take on it, where it's like it's something that's like you don't even care about the prize. You don't really you don't even care. That's not why you're doing it. But as soon as they start dangling the possibility of it in your face, all of a sudden, I want it bad. And I've heard several people who've been up for like these bigger awards talk like that too. Is that something that you kind of subscribe to, that kind of thought process of like, or were you just like,
yes, that's exactly how it is. And Amy Poehler, as usual, fucking nailed it. That's exactly what it is. It's like I never thought, oh man, I really, I was just doing my job, doing what I was my job at the time, which was working on music stuff for the Olympics, and I was just trying to get it done. And then once I found out that we were up for an Emmy and that I could get my name on the thing to get on it, it became like this important thing where if that had not happened, I never would have even considered trying to do it. But it's just like, I mean, I think it's like anything. I think anyone who, because we're genetically programmed to crave and seek the validation of our peers and to try to, enhance our own reputations, and something that does it on that level is just like viscerally appealing. It's like, it would be impossible to be indifferent to it.
Yeah.
You could say you're indifferent to it, but it's, I'm indifferent to it now that I've already done it, but it's, and it's like, I can like disingenuously say, oh yeah, it's totally meaningless, but like, obviously it is meaningful. And it's meaningful to, it's meaningful to other people more than it is to me. And having won those awards has gotten me work, because like, it's not that anyone said, oh, he won an Emmy, let's hire him, but they might say he won an Emmy, let's look at him. Yeah. Let's listen to his music rather than just move it along.
Right.
And so in that sense, it's helped. And one of but yeah, I think that it's easy to dismiss awards like that, like you just did when you said, "Oh, is it a daytime Emmy?" Like, you're not wrong. It's like easy to dismiss them, and I totally sympathize with that perspective. But it's also like it's something that means something. It like we've just decided as a culture that it's meaningful, and so it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I didn't mean that. That was like a really bad joke, and
No,
I've come nowhere.
Hilarious.
Yeah, no, it turned really awesome.
Yeah.
That was great content. Really good content. Yeah, no, but I've never been in that position, obviously, but
not yet.
But not yet. But to think about it in those terms where you're just like, I'm just doing my job. I'm just working. You know, I'm just a union guy doing my thing. And fucking this thing came up, and well, now the people want to recognize that, you know, I do work and I did do good work, and that is that. I can see that, man. I can see that, how that could.
Yeah, I mean, you're not doing this podcast to win, you know, whatever, a potty award or whatever it is. But if someone told you that you were up for one,
right,
you would feel pretty good about it, I'm sure. And then you'd be like, I really want to win that, because you know, because like, I mean, the perception of like, if you had asked me in 2007 before I had been nominated for, or 2005 before I'd been nominated for an Emmy, like, do you want to be nominated for an Emmy? I would have, like, it would have seemed like this was a race that had passed me by so long ago that I had no hope of catching up. Right. But then when someone says like, oh, actually, like, if you sprint, you can make top 5 right now.
Wow.
Then you sprint all of a sudden.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
when he writes for film, does he watch the film and then create? Late Bloomer wants to know. And Late Bloomer also, I think Late Bloomer wanted me to pass on that you should get a Twitch account because they would like to see you work.
I love that. I'm not going to do it though.
Look, yo,
I appreciate it. I'll tell you why. And so I have on my birthday, which was May 25th, I decided to take a year off of social media. And so I have a personal Instagram account that I used to post music stuff on that is just paused for the year. And then my podcast, which we can talk about later, has an account, which is at Book Society Pod, which my assistant runs. It's just basically, this is the episode that's coming up, right?
Yeah.
And my thing is I have a podcast, so I'm like regularly communicating to the public. I do public appearances, and my website, lucascantormusic.com, you can email me directly. So if someone like wants to connect with me, that is, I will, like, we can be friends. I'm happy to get back to you. I'm just like doing this experiment of like, I want to see what like not having these little tiny interactions does for a year. Yeah. Because I think it's kind of toxic for me. Like, and I don't think I don't really have an opinion on social media for other people. This is really personally for me. Yeah. Like, I think it's toxic for me and it doesn't really work for me. So that's where I'm at. What about it's toxic for you? The time that I spend, I don't get anything out of the time that I spend on it. That's really it. Yeah. So like I get, you know, like for me, I look at Instagram and my thoughts are just like, why are my friends doing so much better than me? You know, like, hey, I was in this, like, you know, film scoring program with this person and they just got this movie, you know, like, why didn't I get that movie? And then, so there's a lot of that. And then there's just a lot, you know, I think that's pretty natural. And then I also like, this was something that fascinated me for a while, but I kept getting ads to like start a coaching business, which like, I don't know what like confluence of Instagram or like, you know, internet algorithms led them to believe that I had any interest at all in doing this. But then, so then I was like, all right, fuck it. Let's see. Like, I wasn't going to do it, but I was like, I want to see why I'm getting these ads. And then I started going down this rabbit hole of all these fake gurus who are, you know, like driving around in the Lambos and, you know, just take my course. I'll show you how to trade, whatever, you know? And, so yeah, so that like, that led me down kind of a, like, it just made me sad for like, you know, I mean, I do okay. My wife and I are both composers. We do okay. And, cool. You know, the way that we do that is like, we work really hard. Right. Like we have spent a long time getting good at our thing and we like are really lucky. Yeah. And that's the only formula for success that I've ever seen work, you know, like in the arts.
Have like, good luck.
Yeah. Your two options are get like really good at something and get really lucky if you want to do something in the arts, or like just get a normal job and save very diligently. Yeah. Like, you know, if you're a teacher in Ohio, probably at the end of our careers, if you're like a very diligent saver and you bought your house young, we'll probably end up with like the same lifestyle, you know? So it's like, So yeah, anyway, and then the other side of it was like I just didn't see that like I grew my Instagram account for a while, and I got it to be, I never got it huge, but I got it to be like 1,000, 1,500 or something like that. And it had like no impact on anything that I did at all, like zero impact. Like I didn't get more streams because of it. I didn't get any work because of it, and I didn't really meet anyone. Like, I didn't really meet anyone.
Right.
Like it was like, so it was like so. And I worked really hard at it. I spent like a lot of time creating content and interacting and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is just a waste of time. Like I'm better off just working on a book and, going on podcasts with actual human beings.
Right.
So I think I sound judgmental about social media, and I'm totally not. It's really only for me.
Yeah.
Like it's just not good for me. So
no, I get it. And like that's a huge thing for me as well, is like how much time are we putting into this, and what's the what's the outcome, what's the output? And it's like, well, is it there to just sort of stroke my ego, or is it there to sort of like really promote things in an effective way that's reaching a large scale of people that are actually going to funnel back into whatever I'm promoting? And the way it's sort of structured now, and the way that social media is now, you have to pay for that kind of exposure anymore, unless you get, lucky and you do create a piece of content that goes viral and maybe people come and follow you and stuff. But it's just, you're absolutely right. And when you're talking about Twitch, the amount of time it takes to actually learn how to hook up your computer and download Streamlabs or OBS and learn OBS, and then learn all these things you got to learn, all these hardships that because it is so
you could have read War and Peace.
It's insane. But for me, in the time of the pandemic, what the fuck else was I doing? I built out my website. I built my podcast to even bigger and made it into something profitable. So like that, it was really just the time to be able to put into it, and which the pandemic afforded. And so if the pandemic would have never happened, I would have been just still like gig, record gig, podcast here, do that. I would have never slowed down enough to learn this. So for someone who values their time and hates wasting it, and especially hate wasting it on social media, you will dump an extraordinary amount of time into just learning Twitch. So I don't know if Twitch is right for you either.
I'll tell you, I have not shared this story publicly, but I will tell you the moment that I decided, because you mentioned something about time. And so I have 2 kids, right? And they are 1 and 2. One of them's birthday is today. Actually, he turned 1. And I'm not being a bad father. We had the birthday party yesterday. He doesn't know the difference. But yeah, so he's 1 today. And the other day, a few months ago, I was watching both of them, and I was like checking. Like I got a notification on Instagram, and my young son, I was like doing something on it, and we try not to use the phones in front of them, but whatever. I just like went around the corner and was using it. Yeah. And my young son dove down our stairs.
Oh my God.
He's fine. He was totally fine. Like, they're made of rubber. He was totally cool.
They get right back up.
And he did it. He was fine, but like it definitely could have gone a different way, and he definitely could have been injured. And I was like, man, is this really worth like whatever the fuck was happening on Instagram was just completely not even in the same ballpark as like even just watching my kid do something normal. Like, like I would rather watch my kid poop on a potty than like see who likes some thing. But like when you have it on your phone and you have it in your pocket, you want to look at it all the time.
Right.
And it's designed that way. And so, so when that was definitely my worst parenting moment. I can't believe I just like told your podcast that, but it is what it is. And everybody came out fine, which is, I think, the important thing.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I realized that like this was distracting me from what is the single most important thing in my entire life.
Yeah.
And you are whatever your priorities are, and you are whatever your actions are. And in that moment, I prioritized like my dopamine hit from a screen over the safety of my own child. And that's when I realized like I have a problem.
Right.
Like I don't know if social media has a problem, but I have a problem, and this needs to stop now. And so that's why, to answer long-windedly, your very nice user who I think was trying to be very nice to me and asked me to get a Twitch account. That's why, respectfully and thankfully, I'm probably not going to do it.
And that's fair, and that's a reasonable answer. I mean, the second time I ever rear-ended somebody was because I was texting, and it was texting a long time. It was like when you still had the flip phones and you still had to push
T9.
the T9 texting. Yeah. And so I'm sitting there like do, and I'm at a stoplight and I don't even realize I let my foot off the brake and I'm just slowly, and I rolled and hit this dude's bumper. And this dude tried to say he had to call the police and get insurance involved. There was no marks. I just drove away. I didn't have insurance.
All right. So I've let my kid fall down the stairs, and you have perpetrated a hit and run. So
exactly.
I think we're on even footing here.
Exactly.
But yeah,
but I get it.
Seriously, you could have killed someone.
Exactly.
You could have killed, you didn't. Luckily, it was fine, but you could have killed someone.
Yeah, and the fact that I still will catch myself doing that is fucked up. And I will take my phone and like toss it like on the floor on the other side just so I can't grab it. But now even with my family, because of the pandemic and how much I just turned on to working. Like I just started, I'm working now. This is what I do forever now. And like 14, 15-hour days just dedicated to like whatever I'm doing. And like my family's like, yo, you got to put that shit down. You got to like be a part of the family. You got to like come over here and do things with us. And shit, and see, I forgot what my point was. This is what happens when I start going off on these different avenues. What were we?
Yeah, it's not healthy. Like, I mean, no, it really it's demonstrably not healthy.
No, it's not.
I'm not an expert in that, and other people. This research is out there though.
Yeah,
and you can easily find it. It's part of the reason that our society is the way it is today.
Right.
It's like the long-term effects of someone who is young using this kind of technology are not known. So like we can argue about it, but like I think it's clear that it's definitely not positive. It might be neutral, but it's definitely not positive.
And I mean,
so we don't let our kids use any of that stuff. They don't watch TV.
Oh wow, that's pretty. I mean, you know what? They'll
figure it out eventually.
We just throttled our son on how much he was watching, and like we had to throttle it down to about 2 to 3 hours a day, and it's like because you can see like this huge difference in behavior when you just let a kid on a phone or a device all day with no supervision, where you're just throwing them crumbs on the floor as you walk by to feed them, and just you're just in your own world, especially in a pandemic world where everyone's home and everybody has something to do. Hopefully, we're just throwing them whatever. By the end of the day, he's a monster. He's out of control. He doesn't know how.
How old?
He's 7.
You have your son on social media?
No, he's not.
7?
No. He's not on social media. He is.
I was trying not to judge, but I'm going to judge that.
No. He is on social media actually, but it's very controlled by us. It's not on him. And what he watches on his devices is like Netflix and plays Minecraft. So we don't let him anywhere near it. He also has his own Twitch channel as well, where he plays games with me. So I can see the judgment going, but
no, that's insane. But it's your, it's your family.
Hey, this is how it's going, man.
You know what? Anything you can do to make it easier for my kids to get into Harvard, I really appreciate.
Fair enough. There you go. It's on me. It's on me, Lucas. Your kids.
You know what, dude? We might find out, like, it might be 15 years from now, and we might find out that, like, doing those kinds of interactions prepared him for a world that we cannot now imagine, and that my children are way far behind. That's totally possible.
Well, there is that. I mean, because there is this idea of fucking the neural net coming and having a firm place on the internet before that comes. I mean, because like I want to ask this question, and then I want to kind of like go into your AI stuff because it's so fucking fascinating, and I'm sure everyone's going to find it super fascinating as well. So
maybe
I find it. Well, I mean, I don't know. Like I judge on everyone. People are here. So, like people come here because I bring people on. So I figure people like my taste and other people and ideas. So we'll see.
Oh no, I meant that I might not be fascinating. I think you're
no.
You're great.
No, you're great too, man. You've been nothing but a peach, man. How many episodes of your podcast are you in?
I think we're on number 17. It's hard to because I'm a bit ahead of what's released. So I think I've recorded 20 and we've released 17 of them.
Sweet.
Good. So far so good.
We'll get there. I just looked you up. TED Talk will be watched after Mike talks. What do you feel is online that we should find? What do you feel is online that we should find?
for of my stuff.
Yes.
Oh yeah. So I have. I mean, you can find me on Spotify, Lucas Cantor. That's where I put new music. I think my latest thing is I released an album called Space Hustle, which is like cool, groovy stuff that I recorded 12 years ago and found during the pandemic.
Wow.
I like made this record and forgot about it. So
you made a whole record.
I made a whole record, and it was like I had this friend from us. So I had a studio back in New York that my boss and mentor basically said, like, he was the most hands-off mentor, which for me was perfect. He said, all right, here's what I'm going to do for you. Like, we leave at 5 p.m. We come back at 10 a.m. The studio's yours in between that time.
Wow.
So I was recording shit like daily. You know, I was in there every fucking day, just using that place. And so yeah, to have recorded something that I then forgot about was not out of the realm of normal for me. But I knew this drummer in Vienna. I had met him in Vienna. His name was Herb Pirker, and he's just this amazing jazz drummer who could play this really authentic, like, drum and bass shit, but like live on the drums. And so he came to New York for a tour, and I just said, hey, can you just come by the studio and just like, I'll just give you a click, and can you just like lay down a bunch of shit? And he did that. And then I added guitars and, you know, some synths and some bass, you know, so it's basically just me and him playing everything. And I did it. We recorded it. We sort of finished it. And then I was going to release it. And I like, honestly, just don't remember why I didn't. I just didn't. And I forgot about this record. And when I was just going through stuff during the pandemic, like you said, just sort of getting everything organized, learning new things, I found it and I released it, and it got onto the all new jazz playlist on Spotify, and it's actually done pretty well. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely my most popular thing that's not associated with like a TV show or something.
And what's the name of it? Because I'm on your Spotify right now.
Yeah, it's called Space Hustle. So it's like a black, it's like just a black album cover with 3 stars.
Oh, well, that's not it. Okay.
And
I wonder why it's not coming up. It's right on Lucas Cantor, your page, right?
Yeah, it should be, right. There's a track, like I think the sort of title track is called Mir, M-I-R, like the name of the Russian space station.
Oh, okay. By the way, everybody, here I'm dropping his Spotify in the chat, and look at you. You do well, my friend. You do well.
I do all right. I mean, it's mostly because, like, so to not be a fake guru, I'll tell you my secret, which is that I have, you know, I did a show called Cannon Busters, which was an anime on Netflix, and so a lot of my streams come in from that because that show has a bit of a cult following. And then I did an album called Open Your Eyes for a library that I recorded at Abbey Road with a big orchestra and this vocalist that I love, and that's been sort of like an evergreen thing. It's been up since 2016. People just seem to dig it. So oh, thank you, that's nice of you.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then and the like, but yeah, I wouldn't say I don't have like a formula. Like my formula for like getting plays on Spotify is like do stuff for Netflix. So you know, it's not really repeatable.
Right for Netflix, okay, guys. If you want these kind of numbers, you too can live the life of luxury of having a 63,000 play on your Spotify. Just right for an anime on Netflix.
Oh man, dude, In the Dark. So this track In the Dark is almost at 100,000. I just realized.
Nice.
Look at 59 plays away from.
Look at it. Let's go. Let's get it up there, guys. Let's get it up there. Let's get that to 100,000.
That album I'm super proud of because it was really just like it was.
I wish I could play some of this shit, man. Twitch is super rude about playing other people's music, so I can't play it, but you guys can. Just by clicking on that link.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you just a little bit about that album. Was I did this track with Lord. So, I mean, I'm not on as a producer on this track, which is why I don't have millions of Spotify plays. But I produced this track, Lord's cover of Everybody Wants to Rule the World.
Okay.
Which came out in like 2014. It was on the Hunger Games and all that stuff. And
nice.
It was pretty popular at the time. Yeah. And because of Lord, like my track was fine, but Lord made it into a hit, you know?
Yeah.
I did it with a guy I was working with at the time named Michael Levine, who we're still buddies. And we did this album together too. Where the In the Dark comes from. It's called Open Your Eyes. And because I had done this song with Lord, this company came to me and said like, hey, we want you to do something and we'll pay for it. And so just tell us what it is.
Oh.
And so, yeah. So we ended up doing this. I knew this amazing vocalist who sang these crazy vocal harmonies. And we recorded an album with her with like a full orchestra at Abbey Road. I had it mixed by one of the top film guys here and just like a lot of synths and a lot of live orchestra. And it was
That's nuts.
It's just one of these things that you couldn't, I couldn't have like made it myself.
Right.
But when I had someone say like, all right, well, just, send us the bill. That's what we came up with.
It's like, hey, we really liked what you did with Lord. Here's lots of money to go do whatever you want. All right.
Yep. So
that's amazing though. When you were approaching a project like this, was this something that you sort of had to like really block out time, or was this something that you were able to do like on the side while doing your normal day-to-day sort of work?
Yeah, I don't really have a normal day-to-day.
I understand that
thing. So yeah, it is like everything is kind of on this weird rotating cycle where like with this particular project, Miriam would write a song, she would send it to me, I would do like some arrangement of it, we would go back and forth on it, and then maybe I would send it to Michael, or I would send it to the orchestrator, or like it was just always kind of bubbling up, and we're all working on different things. So sometimes I would send something to someone and they would get back to me that day. Sometimes it would be a week later,
right.
And so it just was but everything I do is kind of like that. And then it stays in this like soup of stuff that I'm trying to touch as often as I can until there's a deadline. And then that becomes the most important thing, which means that the second most important thing ceases to exist for a few weeks. And then,
prioritize.
And that's where it's not the best system. If anyone out there has like some productivity hacks, because like I've been like, there's this part of me that wishes I was like, I could just like get down here at 8. So I'm in my house right now. This is my home studio. Through that door is just, a normal place where normal people would live. And so I have this like idea that I should be able to get down here and like for 2 hours work on my book, and then for an hour work on like some specified project, and then like study a score for an hour, and then practice banjo for an hour, and then or guitar or whatever, and then go upstairs and have lunch, and then come down and do like I have this idea that I should be able to do that because that's how productive, successful people are, but I can't. I've done it for like a day at a time. I just can't do it. So
I feel you. I feel you. That's sort of where I was going with what I was rambling on about like over the pandemic, like working too much, and because I remember what my point was is that it's come to that point where I actually have to put my devices, I turn them off and I put them across the room from wherever the family is congregated. They're all on D&D. They're not going to beep or vibrate at me. And that's what I got to do around 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So I'm not grabbing my shit all the time and looking. But that's a part of a bigger problem when it comes to organizing my time, because I'm terrible at time management. And it seems like you're I want to call you terrible because you're obviously doing something right over there. But
yeah, I just don't do it in a way that seems like I think about, I've seriously had this thought where I'm like, man, I bet Jeff Bezos is better at time management than me. Like I'm seriously like, so that's stupid. And hopefully I'm like, I mean, hopefully you guys have had thoughts like that too, but like, I'm just like, well, why aren't I X? And I think that why aren't I this person? And and the reason in my mind is because like they're better at organizing their life, or they're more focused or whatever. And the real reason is probably a lot more complicated, but that's like, if I have any depression in my life, that's the source of it, is like comparing myself to other people and thinking that someone else knows something that I don't know, or is like able to do something that I can't do, and or that it's not that I can't do it, but that like I can't do gymnastics like Simone Biles, and I'm like just reconciled to that fact. But it's not that I can do something that I can't do something that someone else can do. It's just that I'm not doing something that I could do that someone else is doing, and that's why they're successful. And I could do it too if I could just pull it together and do it.
If I could just get my shit together.
Yeah, if I could just pull myself up by my bootstraps, everything would be fine. But I think that's just kind of a toxic mentality that has been fed to us from like Horatio Alger onward. And there is a lot of truth to the fact that in a country like the United States, you can work hard and achieve a lot. And it's more true here than it is other places. It's less true here than it is in some other places, but it's definitely on the scale of like global history. This is the easiest time in history to like do something great from nothing.
Yeah.
But that still doesn't mean that it's easy, or even in some cases possible.
Right.
It's just easier than it has been.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, and like, I guess it's like, what do you define as great? I mean, what is it that you want to accomplish that's considered great? I mean,
yeah, just like whatever I have done up to this point, just want to do like one more thing.
One more thing that's better.
That's it. Yeah. So it's this, it's part of it is I'm part Jewish. I'm half Jewish. My family is, all sort of artistic people, and so I grew up seeing my parents be professional artists and like have this sort of like feast or famine relationship to money. I mean, they did very well, but it was like, it was never, it was just like always a thing, because when you get paid, when you get like $100,000 in one check, that's awesome. But like, if you don't know where the next check is coming from, that's still stressful.
Yeah, it should, like, or at least
you might not get paid again for 2 years. Like, you don't know. You might get paid again tomorrow. You have no idea.
Exactly.
And so that's like, and that's part of, I think, part of the neuroses is that like I just don't always know what the next thing is.
Right.
And so I always want to be doing something to sort of move that along. And then the balance is finding the place where that's not detrimental to the projects that I'm actually working on.
Right.
Because, it's very easy to say, well, that contract's signed, so let me work on getting another contract, rather than that contract signed, let me deliver that thing.
Right. Yeah. Let's fulfill these orders before we start signing more contracts. That is a balance. And I mean, even on smaller scales, like for me, it's like, I was mostly a gigging musician, which, I put a lot of eggs in those baskets. Shouldn't have did that. But like,
you couldn't have known, dude. Jesus.
Of course. But as a musician, as an artist who works and lives off of art, and as someone who fucking has a podcast and talks about this shit all the time, I constantly say it's like, always have more than one stream of income. If you're going to be a working artist, don't just rely on one gig that you got that's paying the bills now. Like, actively be looking for other forms of income, because, pandemics, the bar closes, fucking the label runs out of money and they just don't exist anymore. It's just that lots of things can just happen. And you gotta sort of be prepared and at least be in a state where you can, like, if you needed to, put more energy towards something and make you more money. You know what I mean? It's just having just multiple incomes it's been super, super helpful for us, because my wife is also a working musician and an artist as well. So, this is what my son's going through now, is like seeing those ebbs and flows that you saw, where it's like, sometimes we're eating well.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, all right, we're having rice and beans again. Yay. So it's a weird balance. It really is. And it does create that famine mentality. And even if you are, oh my God, what the hell? Even if you are someone who is successful and, in your realm, like, that's still something that you're thinking about. That's still something that you're mulling over at all times still, even though, you got Emmys and you work with Netflix and NBC and all these great achievements, but yet you're still sitting here being like, well, I really got to take it seriously. I really got to make sure that the next thing is lined up. I'm always working towards the next thing, even
it's
at the
showbiz,
level.
man. It's showbiz. You're only as good as your last project. That's just all there is to it. It's always been like that. It'll always be like that, and that's it. So
do you like that? Do you like that part of the business? Do you enjoy that?
No, I would much rather have someone like give me a lot of money and have me be able to do whatever the fuck I want. I would prefer that.
I understand.
But I think that part of it is that, like, because we're entertainers at the end of the day.
Right.
And what we have to do is get our, music and art is communication. It's a form of communication. And if your audience doesn't like what you're saying to them, they're going to stop listening.
Yeah.
So, and their tastes change over time, and you have to keep up with that. And so, and your tastes change over time. And so you have to find a way of authentically, delivering that information to your audience, and hopefully they will evolve with you. And one of the things that I always thought of is, I'm a big jazz fan, and you listen to, I'm a jazz guitar player, I guess, by degree, by education. And, you like those guys, like John Scofield, who puts out an album every year. Most of the albums he puts out are amazing, but some of them are just like, all right, he tried that. It wasn't my thing,
right?
But like, I'm still going to stick around because I really like what he does, and I could say the same thing about any of my favorite musicians, that like there are some albums that like I will take to my grave and they will play them at my funeral, and they're like Hot Boy Summer, and then there are some albums that I just don't really care for, but I still love them as an artist. And there's some albums that I don't like when they come out, and I like them years later, you know? And so as an artist, you have to be in touch with, thank you. You have to be in touch with your audience, and you have to react to them. And if they don't like what you're doing, you got to do something else. And if you're not communicating with your art, I don't know that it's art.
Wow. That's, can you break that down a little? Can you unpack that a little?
Yeah, so this is an unpopular opinion that I have, and this is on the podcast that I host. This is the thing that has gotten me the most angry emails. So instead of backing away from it, let me repeat it for your much larger audience.
Oh, of course, let's do it.
But I think that art without an audience is therapy. If you're doing art for just yourself and you don't show it to anyone, you're not doing art. You're just doing therapy.
Yeah.
If you are journaling, you're not a novelist until you show that to someone and it becomes something, you know, and it's not to say that, like, I'm not saying that has no value. It might have tremendous value for you, but it doesn't have any value for anyone else.
Right. And
so
sometimes that's all that, but, and I completely agree with that. And sometimes that's all you need. And that's why if you want to be a bedroom player, you can be the best damn bedroom player you want. And take it a step further, like Lucas said, that you've already accomplished. You're the best player in the room. And that's totally cool. But if you are someone who is like, you know, I want to take my music to the masses, I want to, like, you know, really get this out there, and it's going to require you playing it for people, or, you know, it's going to require
and the
people.
difference between me and someone who is trying to do what I do and has been less successful is that I've been rejected more.
Yeah.
Seriously, like I have put myself forward and lost more times. That is probably the difference.
Yeah.
You know, and that's like and I understand that for some people, that's the idea of putting your heart and soul into something and then sharing it with someone and having them say, or worse yet, nah. Is terrifying, and I understand that is too terrifying for some people to do, and I completely understand that. It is because it is a really, really horrible feeling every time that happens. And there, you can look on my Spotify and find project, like, there's nothing on there that I didn't think was amazing, and there's some stuff on there that, you know, a couple thousand people have listened to, and there's some stuff on there that fucking nobody's listened to. You know. And like all of those are my children, and I love all of them. And every time I look at, like, SoftBank Symphonia was this octet that I wrote. It's this hour-long octet. I've recorded it, and like every time I open that and see that it's been heard by like less than 1,000 people, it breaks my heart a little bit, because I feel like, but you know, I felt like people would resonate with it, and I was wrong.
Right.
You win some, you lose some.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly.
And so, but but I leave it up there because maybe someday someone will stumble across it and it'll mean something to them. But whatever thing that some of my other stuff has tapped into, this project didn't tap into it.
Right.
And so that doesn't mean that I quit music. It just means that I move on and do another one and try to get the other one to be better.
Right. And you just learn. Like, that's the thing. It's like failure's learning. That's the thing that people fucking forget. And when people are so brittle and that they can't take rejection, because a big part of this job is rejection. I mean, even as a podcaster, I'm constantly facing rejection. When I ask people to come on my show and and they don't respond, or there's like, I don't know, or whatever it is. Constant rejection, constantly, but you just sort of have to get used to it. It's just part of it. Move on, and to dwell on that kind of shit that's where people really lose their shit, is when they're just like, well, I should have got it, and blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, buddy, enjoy.
Yeah, the amazing thing is, and I don't believe this in really any other context, but in, you know, the market knows, like in art. And the people who are making decisions know. And like I've lost gigs that I thought, I've had that exact feeling where I'm like, dude, I should have got that. I don't know what's up. And then I see the final product and I was like, oh, their vision was different than I thought. And like they really did need that person and not me. And I never would have done that for them. Right. And the way that it came out is great. And then there are some projects where I get rejected and it comes out and I'm like, that really didn't work, but what I was going to do wasn't going to make it work much better. So, you know, there's a I do think in the long run that it's a positive experience to be an artist. And even though you get rejected a lot, I think the successes, even if they're very minor successes, like a very minor success can make up for a very major failure.
Yeah, totally.
I think.
Totally. I mean,
but at this point, Mike, I'm sorry. I want to pause and I want to talk a little bit about something that is very passionate to me, and that is fire safety.
Okay. Oh,
so it's very important that you change the batteries in the fucking fire alarms in your house.
Oh, you hear that?
Yes. Get a goddamn 9-volt battery and a ladder.
You know, I was just thinking that the other day. I heard it this morning because my wife streamed this morning, and I'm hearing it while she's talking, and I'm just like, because there's a little delay, and so you'll hear it, and by this time we're already used to it. It's just part of the background noise now. And all of a sudden I hear it come out of the stream, and I'm like, God damn it! I forgot about this stupid thing. Thank you for reminding me again.
No, man, dude. When I lived in Brooklyn, the landlord was notoriously bad at doing that, and like I would do them in my house, but he would not do them in the hallway.
Right.
And so it would be like days, and I mean, it just used to drive me insane.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. Those little noises that can, for some people, they can just, fade to the background. But for some people, it's just like right up front. That's so strange.
Yeah. Everyone's sensitive to different shit, right?
Yeah, totally, man. Yeah. Because I can, like I said, I mean, I push that back. But like if I really focus on something, I can hear like a clave click buried in a mix of like a fucking huge, you know what I mean? Like a huge orchestrated thing. I can hear this one little tiny clave clicking through in the back, just, like it's like right next to me. Or I can hear how this slightest compression is making this fucking guitar sound great or terrible, whatever it is. But I can't but yeah, exactly. But I can't, but this beep just fades into the background for me. Just fades.
That's amazing.
Well, I guess we all choose what we focus in on. I don't know. I guess we don't choose, I guess. I don't know.
I'm very sensitive. Part of my like musical aesthetic is that I'm very sensitive to ambient sounds. And like I think about like sort of the space that stuff is in a lot. Yeah. And that's just part of my thing. And I like, one of the things I do all the time is record, just like if I'm in a place that sounds interesting, I'll just record it on my phone.
Oh, cool.
And I use that stuff all the time. And I don't use it in like a, artsy way. Like I just use it as like textures. And, if you listen to my music, you probably won't even notice, but that's like a thing that I do all the time. And
that's really cool.
So I'm really sensitive to the sounds of like just places.
Yeah, man. Like this house in particular, I remember I took like a heroic dose of mushrooms one night, and like fucking, I was just sitting here by myself, and it was like just me in the house, and I was just sitting by myself on the couch, and I start focusing in on like the refrigerator compressor starts going, and it's like bzzz, and then that triggers me hearing like the aquarium, and then that triggers like the creaking of like a branch outside the window, and then I hear like the fireplace roaring, and I swear to God, I sat there probably for like an hour and a half, and by the time I was like realized what was happening, there was just the loudest orchestra of like just room noise I've ever heard in my life. It was amazing because like in my head, it's just this like it was just blaring. But it was just these small noises that no one gives a shit about. No, like people that only Lucas cares about because he's super sensitive to it. So, so
everywhere has that richness. I mean, every place in the world on Earth and even in space, probably, who knows? Yeah. But every place on Earth has that richness and that texture visually and olfactorily and audibly. And orally, that's what I was looking for. And it's like, it's you as a human, and this kind of leads into the AI thing a little bit. As a human, you have to make very conscious decisions or unconscious decisions about what you pay attention to, because there's so much information coming at you at any given time that you can't possibly pay attention to all of it. If you were if you were to flip a switch and say, okay, I'm going to consciously make every executable decision in my day, you couldn't even get out of bed,
right?
Because you have to decide when you wake up, you have to decide, all right, well, when I kick my feet over my bed, am I going to land in the ocean and get eaten by a shark? Because there's a chance that might be water. I can't see it from here.
Right.
Should I tip my head over and look? Because if I do, there might be a predator. I might lose like, you can't make all those decisions. You just calculate these probabilities. Like, probably it's the same as it was yesterday and I can just stand up.
Right.
But an AI computer doesn't have to make those compromises. It can literally take in all the information you can feed it and make probabilistic calculations based on all of it. Yeah. And so it can come up with some really weird ideas that humans would never think of.
Yeah. Like what?
Like it can, so in the medical field, it can see AI that they use now can see these like really interesting correlations between certain people's actions and health outcomes. Like, like to know that there's a 2% chance of getting some disease, or your chances of getting some disease are like 2% higher if you drive, more than 30 miles a day. Wow. Right? Like this is the kind of statistic a doctor would never be able to figure out because it's just too small. But like a bunch of those become statistically significant, and this has nothing to do with music, but this is the kind of stuff that AI is able to do in your everyday life to enhance professionals, but also to sell you stuff. Yes. An advertiser could never figure out that. I don't know if you read this, but a couple of years ago they did this study where there was this this meaningful correlation between people who had liked the Facebook page for Cheese Whiz and people who had like above average intelligence and were public intellectuals. And obviously these two things are not directly related, but there is like some bit of data that you can draw from that. And so, then, maybe you want to advertise masterclass or like, whatever on the page for Cheese Whiz, which the Cheese Whiz people nor any advertising executive would ever have thought of, right? But that just is what it is. And so there's all this there's this world of data that we just don't understand and are unable to process that increasingly computers are able to process for us and give us meaningful, statistically meaningful conclusions from these things. So I don't know, that's part of what I find fascinating, just learning about AI. That has absolutely nothing to do with how AI processes music, but I guess it does a little bit.
Yeah, it does, because it's able to take in all this information of a history of music, and especially because of what you have accomplished with Schubert's Symphony No. 8. You're able to sort of feed in. Well, I mean, instead of me explaining it, why don't we have you explain it? But
yeah, well, so here's the other side of that coin that I just said, that like the AI can draw meaningful conclusions from what else seems like random data or too much data. Is that because we're humans and our art is designed by and created for humans, our artistic products have a lot of convention and assumptions built into them. So one of the ideas that when we first did the Schubert project, the idea was, we've got all this recorded music. Why don't we give this neural network all of the audio of everything that Schubert ever wrote, and we'll just let it listen to that, and then we'll have it generate things that are similar, right? Seems plausible, right?
Yeah.
If you could, if you were a human and you spent, the human equivalent of, 15 years just listening to everything Schubert ever did, and then someone asked you to produce music like Schubert, you probably could do it pretty faithfully, more or less. But we forgot a couple of key things. First of all, the machine doesn't know what music is. So, it does on some level, but it doesn't on the level that we know what it is. It's just knows that it's a bunch of frequencies. And so it was a little bit like showing it a photo of or showing it like the facade of a skyscraper and saying, make something like this. So it might say, okay, well, it should be, 800 feet tall and there should be some glass on the outside. But then you go in it and you realize there's no floors, or there's no stairs, or there's no bathrooms, because how would it know how to put any of that stuff in there? Because you can't see that from the outside. And so with music, it was, it saw relationships and frequencies that we would never have thought of. And there's also, inherent in any piece of recorded music, there are imperfections. Not the least of which is that our system of 12 notes of music is not natural. So to a machine, it doesn't necessarily know that an octave above A440 should be 880, but in our system it is 880, but a C sharp should be a about 6 cents sharper, about 2 cents sharper than it actually is.
Mm-hmm.
And so a machine doesn't know, those relationships. And what happened was we fed it all of this audio data, and it gave us back. We asked it to give us back data in MIDI form so that I could just play it, like see it on a piano, and it gave us back what we described as cats walking on a piano. Just like complete random nonsense, right? And,
nice.
And so,
before you go on, when you guys were expecting these results, were you guys had you guys put in a lot of time at this moment, or was this something that, I mean, like, because were you expecting something more? I mean, obviously you were, but like, how much time did you put into it before you realized this, before you got this result and realized you had to go further?
So let me be clear on my involvement. So Mick Grierson is a brilliant technologist in the UK, had developed this this AI to do this kind of predictive stuff, and he had gotten really good results in other things before this, and he'd been doing it for years, and is really, really good at that stuff. And so he and I became friends it might have been when I was recording Open Your Eyes, because I was in London, and I just met him through a good friend of mine, who's also a professor over there, named Rebecca Febrink, who is an amazing music technologist. And anyway, so there's all these people, very, very smart people, doing really interesting work in this field. And I got lucky enough to hook up with one of them, and Mick and I thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we finished Schubert's Unfinished Symphony? And we both kind of left this meeting thinking, I think this was something he was going to do anyway, and I thought maybe I would help, with the orchestration. And we figured this was going to be something that we would play a MIDI mock-up for 10 grad students, and then we'd all drink some beers, and that would be that. And someone would write a paper about it, and we'd just move on with our lives. And so and then I don't know exactly what happened, but Mick got involved with Huawei, the biggest cell phone manufacturer at the time in the world. And they said, can you do this? Can you run this on one of our phones? And Mick said, yeah. And I mean, their phone was like it was like a 12 core phone or something like that. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember
and
that.
So Mick was like, yeah, sure. We can do that. And they realized quickly when they were getting the cats on a piano results that they needed someone to, that putting on a concert was a lot more than someone writing music, and that writing music was a lot more than spitting out some melodies.
Right.
And so they needed to get a composer involved. And back to our previous conversation, Huawei obviously didn't really know me, and I also didn't know anything about them.
Yeah.
But the fact that I had won 2 Emmys was the thing that got their marketing department to sign off. Like they didn't hear a note of music. They were just like, oh, okay, well, if he's done that, then I'm sure he can handle this. Yeah. And that was all there was to it.
Wow.
And so luckily I was also, I mean, I guess they might have listened to some music, but I don't know if they did.
Right.
But yeah, so then they asked me to do it, and I very quickly realized that the AI wasn't really going to be able to, we weren't going to be able to take like MIDI from the AI and just like put it on a music stand, right? Which is never going to happen. But what we did do was, thank you. What we did do was we put, we got the AI we fed it some simple Schubert. Schubert was one of the most prolific composers in history. He wrote as much, he only was active for 18 years. He died at 32, and he wrote as much in 18 years as J.S. Bach wrote in about 50.
Wow.
So he was ridiculously prolific, was like scribbling music with one hand while talking to his friends, like just writing constantly.
Yeah.
And so he had, I found like a bunch of several hours of waltzes, just piano waltzes, which were just pure melody. And I had my assistants at the time extract some like melodies and just give the AI monophonic melodies that Schubert had written, like hours of them. And we extracted stuff from the symphonies, and we extracted stuff from his larger works, but we sort of fed it progressively, like really simple stuff, and then the more complicated stuff. And then I asked it to give me monophonic melodies back. And that is what we used. And then we gave it Schubert's the Eighth Symphony and said, okay, how would you finish this? And so it gave me a bunch of melodies, and I put them in order, basically. And then then orchestrated them, and then Brad Decter was the final orchestrator on all that stuff. Wow. And so the result was really fascinating because Schubert, Schubert didn't die not finishing this. Well, he did die not finishing the symphony, but he wasn't working on it when he died. He also wrote a Ninth Symphony. He just stopped working on this one. So, and one of the reasons was that I think it was a little bit modern for the time. And had he lived, you know, he might have come back to it 40 years later and realized, oh, I can actually finish this in the way that I had envisioned. But so, and I didn't even really think of that. I realized that when I started to get back results from the AI that were melodies that I thought were kind of inconsistent with that period of Schubert, but would have been right at home a couple of years later, 30 years later. And so I just decided to lean into that and put them in there and just see what happened, basically. And I tried to do some orchestration like in the style of Schubert, but really what I was trying to do was make a concert that was going to be interesting. And the criticism that I've gotten for that piece, like the like classical music press, like basically universally hated it. And like, but they were going to no matter what. So like, I literally went into it thinking like, there is no way, like, so there's a guy named Brian Newbold, who's a Schubert scholar. I've got his book on my shelf here. Nice. He's still alive. He's British. And he has done a speculative finishing of Schubert's Unfinished Symphony based on a sketch that Schubert did. And they think that the fourth movement was supposed to be something that he ended up using for something else later. And he's done this, and it's brilliant. And it really does sound like Schubert. And he's like a real scholar who really made it sound like Schubert. And if you ever want to read the most vitriolic YouTube comments you've ever seen, go to Brian Newbold's finishing of Schubert's Unfinished Symphony. Like, you would think that he was trying to run for president on a platform of bringing back slavery. Like, it is just the meanest shit you have ever seen. And so I read that before I started, and I just realized, I was like, okay, just brace yourself for the fact that there is going to be a certain number of people who are just going to hate it no matter what. But what I really tried to do was just make it a concert that a bunch of people could come to and enjoy. And they will listen to Schubert, and then they'll listen to this thing, and then they'll walk out thinking that it was a good show. And I think I accomplished that.
Yeah, and that's you're here to entertain, not to like appease 20 people on Twitter, right? It's like what's the name of the guy?
Trolls can buy their own food.
Exactly. Get out of here. Wait, but what was the name of the composer you said who?
Oh, Brian Newbold.
Brian Newbold.
I have it right? I think I have it right. Yeah. I mean, he wrote, I have a book on Schubert. Yeah, Newbold. I have two books on Schubert here that he wrote. And I think Brian Newbold's finishing of the Unfinished Symphony is brilliant. And like, I love it. I think it's really great. But you can't, the thing, people did ask me this, do you think this is how Schubert would have finished it? Or like, did you really truly finish Schubert's Unfinished Symphony? And, on the one hand, the project was the intelligence of a dead human being being channeled by a machine and then interpreted by a living human being. And that is a profound thing to do. It is a profound thing to just think about what that means, that can happen. But on the other hand, Schubert is dead forever and he can't finish the symphony. So like, you could finish it any number of ways, but we'll never know how he would have finished it.
Exactly.
So
it's interesting that people just were like chomping at the bit just to get a piece of that. That's just, it's like, what do you want, guys? Like, we fed it to a computer and like, I reinterpreted it. Like, what do you want?
Yeah. I mean, that wasn't it was like, it's just not every critique, but like a lot of the criticism, I think today, I mean, criticism is a sort of an important art form that goes back many years, and it's a hard thing to do, and it's a noble thing to do, because you do get a lot of stuff wrong and you end up looking like an idiot as much as the people who you criticize over time. Basically nobody liked Beethoven's symphonies, and like, the critics were, I mean, the reviews for the Ninth Symphony were, I guess this one's better than the other 8.
The best.
But today, who are those critics? Nobody knows, but everyone knows who Beethoven is.
Absolutely.
And you're trying to, like, as a critic, you're trying to give your readers or viewers, you're trying to make the world a little bit easier for them, and saying like, these are things that, you like my taste. This is what I like. And you should, these are things you should pay more attention to than others. And I totally understand that and respect it. And even when I'm on the wrong side of it, I totally get it. But I think a lot of criticism today, especially sort of like internet Twitter criticism, is like, you did this in a way that like I would have done this differently than you.
Right.
Which is not a criticism.
That's not how I would have did it.
Yeah.
That's not.
Like, why did you do I think I'm quoting Bill Maher. Like, why did you do it the way you did it instead of the way that I would have done it? Well, I got nothing to say to that. So
what can you do, man? Okay, we got a couple questions here, and I want to stay on the AI thing, because I really really interested in it, and especially as we're sort of going forward. And I know this isn't your whole career. I know this whole
Mhm.
AI thing is not your whole career, and like this was just sort of like this footnote, but it does seem like it got a good amount of attention, and it
It did,
is
yeah.
it's I mean, it's very fascinating. Especially when you think about how things are going with like the neural net and Neuralink, and but we'll come back to that because I do want to get to Penny's questions here because
Okay.
they put them in there a while ago. So rewording my earlier question, what song or soundtrack are you most proud of? There you go.
Oh man, that's a hard question. Okay, I'll tell you two things. First of all, I'm working on a score for a film, a documentary called Failure to Protect, that's going to be hitting festivals this fall. And the score for it is I'm doing it with my favorite string quartet, and I designed all the music to be played individually because I knew we weren't going to be able to record. And
Mm,
so I was able to do all this really interesting stuff with like delay and
wow.
effects because when you record a quartet, you can't really get them individually because you record them in the same room.
Right.
But for this, I was able to get them individually,
Wow.
and it's like I have it's not mixed, but like it's pre-mixed. I know what it sounds like. I
Hmm.
think it's the best thing I've ever done.
That's
So
tight.
I'm going to release it as a Spotify album. It'll be called Failure to Protect. That'll come out like in the fall probably.
So
So
cool.
that's the thing I'm most proud of. Unfortunately, nobody's heard that, and nobody can hear it yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, like everything on my Spotify, I think Softbank Symphonia. If you want something that's like you can study to it and relax to it, it's really classical music with classical instruments. I'm very proud of that, and I think it's cool. I utilized AI to do that also.
Oh,
And
sweet.
I also got to meet Masayoshi-san, the head of SoftBank, as a result of that project.
Wow.
Who is one of the richest people in the world. He's worth like hundreds of billions of dollars, something like
Which
that.
is
Or his fund is. Um,
unfathomable amount of money.
yeah, like
Fathomable.
yeah. Like I should have charged him more for the piece. Like no matter what I charged him, I could have doubled it, and he would have been like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Yeah.
so that piece I'm proud of. I'm really proud of the Space Hustle album too, because that was
Hell
from
yeah.
an era like I don't perform as much anymore,
Mhm.
and that was like back from a time when I did, and so
Wow.
like my playing on that is better than probably it would have been if I tried to make that album today. So I dig that. I dig that one, and yeah, I'm proud of musically. Those are probably the things I'm the most. I'm proud of Open Your Eyes. I'm proud of everything that I've released publicly. So, um, yeah, Open Your Eyes is really cool if you want like something epic and you want to feel like, you know, if you're like on mushrooms and you want to like take a journey, just like darken the room and listen to that album.
I like that.
Yeah,
That's my shit. That's my shit.
yeah.
The second question by Penny is my dad traveled and I was mom's date for classical when he did. What is your favorite classical? Thank you for sharing that too, Penny. I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. Uh, my favorite composer to whose music to hear live is probably Tchaikovsky.
Oh,
I mean, it'd be hard to pick. I mean, I also love if you guys like, I can give you a list of like stuff that if you go see it at a concert, you will absolutely love it.
mm.
Like just any human being will love it because if you don't know about classical music, you're kind of rolling the dice when you go to a concert because you might walk into some weird ass stuff, right? And seriously,
Yeah.
there are like because art requires experimentation. There are sometimes entire concerts of pieces of music that like are just kind of hard to listen to for me,
Yeah. Okay.
and for everybody.
Oh yeah.
But stuff that you will never be disappointed with is Tchaikovsky. Anything Tchaikovsky does is just beautiful and amazing. And one great thing to notice is if you ever go see a program where it's Tchaikovsky and some other composer, you'll notice that the same orchestra sounds bigger when they're playing Tchaikovsky's music. And that's a testament to his orchestrational skill. And he's if you start digging into this kind of things that Tchaikovsky wrote, you'll realize that you've been hearing his music your whole life and maybe not realized it. A good example is, I mean, obviously, I think most people know he wrote the Nutcracker, so he scored your Christmas for your entire life. And he also wrote, if you've ever seen Sleeping Beauty, the sort of title song of that is "I da da, you walk with you once upon a
Mm.
dream." So that's actually a Tchaikovsky melody that they just
Wow.
appropriated into a Disney song.
Yeah.
Um,
There you go.
so that Tchaikovsky is amazing. The piano concertos, yeah, anything that Tchaikovsky does, you should go see. Dvorak is probably my other favorite composer
Mm.
for like orchestral classical music. He's amazing. He's a Czech composer, I think. Is that right? Sounds right. I hope I'm right.
Mm.
And and he was, early 20th century, late 19th, early 20th century, and just really like, it's just really good. And I think that Dvorak might be the best composer at endings. And I tried to emulate the ending to his, I think his New World Symphony when I did the Unfinished. Because I just love, there's just nothing better than a big ending when you see classical music. Just why not? Like, you want to have the biggest ending possible. That's what I always go for, and that's what Dvorak went for. So yeah, I would say Tchaikovsky and Dvorak. But anyone whose name you've heard, anyone whose bust you can buy at a music store, you won't be disappointed.
Moving Dutchman, thank you so much for that host. Handel, is that how you say it? Handel scored our lives as well. I don't know who that is.
Handel, yeah.
Handel.
Oh, you're talking about the Messiah, but really it's only the Messiah.
Oh, that's
Handel. So, the joke is that musicians get, like orchestral musicians like, I have to play the Messiah again. And Handel's like, yeah, you're welcome for paying your rent for the month of December for your entire life. Because the Messiah, that's one that like you get that gig and you play it 30 times in a month.
Yeah. You play it more than you hear it on the radio.
Yeah.
All right. So good to see you too, lovely. Welcome, Moving Dutchman. Good to see you, my friend. Welcome in. So the AI thing, I kind of want to go back to. Have you ever read anything by Yuval Noah Harari?
Yeah.
He wrote this book. I don't know. He might have talked about it in his other books as well, but the one that sticks out to me that relates to AI is off of 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, in where he talks about how AI, because there's this idea, and even in your TED talk, I think you're like, music only has emotions because people put emotions to it, and they attach it to ideas and memories.
Well, music doesn't have emotions; people have emotions.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
My bad. I got. Yeah, I'm summarizing your entire TED talk wrong. There you go, everybody.
No, this is good. Close enough.
Close enough. Fucking care. He cares about details. He did more, but yes. Okay. Penny's over here getting spicy. But
I wish I could see the comments. I'm sorry. I'm sad that I can't.
No, it's on the website. You can, but
all right.
It's all okay. I mean, we're almost done now, so here we are. But in that book, he talks about how, the AI is going to reach a point, especially once it becomes sort of intertwined with us, where we're going, especially with what Elon Musk is doing with Neuralink, the neural net. They're saying how AI is going to be able to not only compose music, but it's going to be able to compose music for people, like specifically for people and for times of for any time of your life you want it for, because it has access to memories and it has access to emotions, and then it'll be able to sort of put together this profile of a song that fits this moment perfectly for what's going on in your life. Now, is that something that you would agree with? I mean, I know it's hard to be like, yes, that's what's going to happen, because it's
I have not read 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. But if that's in there, that's like also in my book. so I'm writing a book right now. That exact thing is in there.
Wow,
it's
amazing.
It's described pretty much the way you just described it, and yeah, in theory, AI should be able to do that. A computer should be able to do that. Mm-hmm. Although I don't know, and I'll preface this by saying that Yuval Noah Harari, on like a top 10 list of smartest living humans and maybe a top 20 list of smartest humans ever, he's probably on it. Yeah, right? And he knows more than I do about basically everything. He's probably a better orchestral composer than I am, for all I know.
He's really a historian. He's a historian, but he's a better composer as well.
So yeah, this is just like with all, I just want to be clear how much I love his work and how much I respect his writing and his opinions before I say the next thing, which is that futurism is just an inherently flawed art form. So a historian, I don't know if it's even an art form, but a historian can look back, and the idea of historians is to look backwards and see the path that we walked and how we got to where we are, right? If we're going to use the metaphor of wandering through a desert, which is appropriate because he's Israeli, right? And so it's to look back and see the path. And but when you're looking back at history, you're only seeing the paths of a few people. You're only seeing the paths of the people who were recorded and the people who we remember. So and when you're looking back at the immediate past, which is the past that we, in our living memory, it just looks like a bunch of like nonsense footsteps going in all different directions all over the desert. And it's impossible to tell which direction it's going, right? You can't tell. Like, you could say, okay, we're going to continue on the trajectory that we came from, but it's also possible that we'll take a hard right turn, or that we'll just start going backwards, or that we'll get on a spaceship and go up. Like, you have no idea. There's no way to predict with any kind of accuracy the direction that society or technology or anything is truly going to take. You can say that it's likely going to go this way, it's likely going to go that way, but history is filled with people who have been wrong about that. And I'm running into this problem with the book that I'm writing right now is like a natural history of music. And I start 40,000 years ago, and everything is pretty clear and easy to follow and a narrative until you get to about 1877, which is when stuff starts to be recorded. And then like I can't make sense of it all because all this stuff was happening at the same time, and we have data for all of it. And what what a common thing to think is like, people in the 19th century were so much smarter than us, and they were better writers than us, and like listen to the music that came out of the 19th century and the 18th century. But the reason that we have that bias is because we don't remember the crap. Like, it wasn't recorded.
Right.
So like, there were people in the 19th century that wrote volumes and volumes of totally meaningless, shitty books that people consumed because they were available, but those things did not get preserved, and certainly not preserved in the popular memory. So it looks like the only people who wrote music in the 17th century were Mozart, Beethoven, and Schubert.
Right.
But the reality is much different. And the reality is that there were probably as many people proportionally doing it then as there are right now. But in 1877, with the invention of recording, we just have all this stuff. And so jazz is developing at the same time as rock and roll, which is developing at the same time as this sort of folk music revolution. And then electronic music is developing at the same time as, whatever you want to call what the Beatles did and Pink Floyd did. And then all of this stuff is developing in a parallel way. And it's impossible to tell like what all of it means because we're just not there yet. So for my entire point in saying this is that like, while I respect Yuval Noah Harari's predictions about what might happen with AI in the future, and that they are definitely based on well-reasoned, well-researched thoughts, propositions, and information, he's just guessing as much as anybody else.
Yes. Very educated guesses, but guessing nonetheless. Yeah, for sure. And then so like, I mean, how do you see sort of all of this? How do you see the path to getting to this idea then that you're covering in your book, and Yuval covered in his book? Which, by the way, he didn't. That was just like one little section. It wasn't like the whole thing. It was like a little.
It's not a big part of my book either. But the idea of you're back to the original question of the idea of music being created by an AI that is going to be more satisfying to humans than music created by another human. I think that, this is kind of what my TED talks about, that once music is not, if someone asks you, like, I got headphones on right now. If you were to come into this room and say, what are you listening to? And I answered you by saying, I'm listening to music that was recorded in primarily large condenser microphones that was run through a nickel plated wire board in London, the United Kingdom. That's right. That's the answer to what you asked. But what you really want to know is, who am I listening to?
Right.
I'm listening to the Beatles, and both those answers mean the same thing. But like, the Beatles have an emotional connection to basically everybody and everybody who's ever heard of them, even if that connection is I hate the Beatles. Right. It's still an emotional connection.
Absolutely.
And there is you can underscore someone's life, which is I think what Yuval Noah Harari is describing with music that is created in the moment. But the real value of music is that it exists over time. And so and he's right that if you're born and this is what music is from day one, then that's just what music is going to be. And then music will, at that point, have evolved into a different thing than it was when we used to make it ourselves.
Right.
So in that sense, like, yes, it'll still be an organization of, energy particles that vibrate between 20 and 20,000 hertz, but it won't be the same thing that we used to call it, that you and I would recognize as music.
Right.
And I don't know that I don't know that having music be that is beneficial to anyone. And the problems that one would have to solve in order to make music truly accessible and as good as human music are just frankly not profitable to solve. It's not like, I don't know what you're going to do with an electronic orchestrator, because you're taking it's just not that. I mean, how much would you pay? There are not a lot of people who would pay any amount of money for that, and it is a huge endeavor. So yeah, I think that music on the one hand is, once AI can have a compelling story about its compelling origin story, people are going to be interested in listening to that music. But I think that we're not going to stop listening to other human created music.
Yeah.
But I am currently right now engaging in futurism, and I could be wrong also.
Right. But I mean, it's fun. I mean, like, for the most part, futurism is just fun to think about, like to sit there and think that what Kurzweil is saying is what's gonna be, is no one fucking knows. It's really fun, and like it's really fun to see that guy like eat like a big pile of vitamins. Have you ever seen?
I mean, I love Kurzweil's writing too, but it has a fatal flaw, which is that once he dies, all his predictions are going to be seen to be false because one of his main predictions is that he's never going to die.
Yeah, I'm gonna be forever. That's why I take all these vitamins.
Yeah, but I mean, there's it's bold and interesting to make the prediction like, yeah, I'm never going to die because of technology, but if you don't, you will be the first. And also, I mean, this is a completely separate discussion, but man, 70, 80 years seems like enough for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I think at that point I'll be like, wow, that was fun.
Yeah. It's like my fucking back hurts now. I think I'm ready to fucking just lay down forever.
Now,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. My shoulder hurts and shit.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Now, as technology sort of technology music sort of develops and like we touched on it just a little bit, but like at the beginning we're just talking about how like technology has come so far is that now when these like Netflix, when they're looking for a composer, they're looking for a guy that can just, who's really good on fucking MIDI. And it's like, and it's one person and and it could be remote. It doesn't have to be all taking place in LA. It could be some guy out in Oregon. And
no, that's not what they're looking for.
Oh, okay.
They're looking for a department head. They're looking for someone who can deliver them the thing that they need.
I see.
And that's it. So like Netflix.
So it's not looking for a cheaper, because the way I saw it and the way I was taking it was that they're looking for a cheaper way to sort of budget music into the overall
Netflix
product.
does not skimp on product, and Netflix pays better than anybody.
Right on.
Netflix is not. They are not looking to like build their business on the backs of underpaying artists. They are exactly the opposite. And when Netflix calls, I drop everything. I will do anything for them. And they have always dealt with me and everyone that I know with like a level of fairness that is way above and beyond what we would expect.
Wow.
And so they're the exact opposite of that. The reason that they come to me is not because I'm one guy who can do something cheap. It's because I'm a guy who they know who can deliver. Like if I tell them I can deliver something to them, they can, they know that I will.
Right.
So, they'll say, hey, we've never heard you do anything with a big band, but can you handle this? And I'll say, yes. Or if I can't, I'll say no and say, but I know someone who can. And, what they don't want to deal with the details of like, who am I going to hire to play the horn? Who am I going to get to what they want is just hear it and have it be banging. But they also are completely like, if I'm just like, this is what I want to do, this is what it's going to cost, they'll say, that sounds good.
Wow.
We'll pay for it. That sounds great.
And then they're just looking for someone who can just get the job done. However that's done, it doesn't matter where it comes from, as long as you can deliver it. And
it's creative play at a very high level. What they want is to like get the thing that we're all imagining, right? They want to get the thing they're imagining, and they put together a team of people who can make it happen.
Yeah.
And so when I do something for Netflix, it's usually me and someone from the music department and someone from the editorial department, and we're all good and have done this many times and are trying to make the best possible product so that viewers like it. And I know I'll only speak for myself, but I take a lot of pride in like someone seeing a promo for Netflix that I did and getting really hyped up to see the product, because that's not, that doesn't happen by accident. That's like, we very passionately put everything we've got into something like that. Exactly. And so when someone is like excited for it, that was the goal,
Yeah.
And Netflix does a great job of just fostering that culture of like, what you should be focused on is making the thing you're doing awesome.
That's awesome. Which that seems like Is that something that is, I mean, because the way you said that about Netflix and the way you described how they treat you guys, you're alluding to that you haven't had such a great and welcoming, reception in the past with maybe working with other studios. And, I'm not asking you to name names or anything like that, but
No,
I'm saying,
it's not like that. So it's like business is kind of done here a certain way, right? So it's like if you came to my house for dinner and I served you like a really great dinner and it was really great and you loved it and you were like, oh, that was awesome. And then you went over to someone else's house and they like hired a chef and like, have a dining room that floats in their pool. Like it's not that like other networks. I mean, there are like, I have worked for some clients who have screwed me. That has happened.
Yeah.
And they're all the usual suspects that you would expect. And there is like a sort of buyer beware culture in some of these, for some of these companies. And we know who they are. And you just try to get the shit up front in a contract and, you just deal with it the best that you can.
Wow.
Like there are some that are better than others, but Netflix is like far above the best possible situation. And so, the majors are all like, they're all ultimately good to work for because they all ultimately, their goal is to make something good.
Right.
And so I'm at a point where I can, I can't like make demands, but I can finagle, I can negotiate for more than I used to be able to negotiate for, if that makes any sense. And so, but yeah, there, of course, like any corporation, some of the big companies in LA, they want to get the most they can get for the least amount of money, like anybody. So, so that's where they come from. I feel like, but for the most part, they're all like, I haven't had any like really terrible experiences. I think the one that I got that was probably the worst was the Lord song. And I was working with a big reputable publisher on that. And I just didn't get included on the back end of that.
Wow.
Which if I had, it would have been a completely different thing. But at the time, the deal that I signed at that time made perfect sense because I had been working on this thing. Nobody had ever heard of Lord. And the thing that we made it for, it didn't land.
Right.
So like, I just wanted to get paid because I'd spent a couple days on this and I wanted to get some money.
Yeah.
And so I signed what at the time was a totally reasonable deal. And they might have known that Lord was about to break and they might not. I really don't know. Like at that point, like, so they might have known that I was signing a terrible deal, but it is like not actually incumbent on them to tell me.
Right.
If that's the case,
and
I've worked for them since and I don't begrudge them for doing that.
Right. You're not holding some regret. Like I could have been Lord. I could have been more than this. I could have got paid on the back
I could have
end.
probably made more money, but that was like really the beginning of my career as a composer, who, like that was really the beginning of my career.
So
of,
it wasn't such
a phase of my career. So
and that's like that's not such a bad deal when you think about it as you're starting a career, because anybody who starts something, most of the time you start at a spot that you start at the bottom and you fucking have to claw your way up unless you know somebody, which is very helpful too.
Yeah. No, I mean I did that too. It's just this was just one of the big step ups was that thing. And I also, like, to be very clear, like they did pay me, like they paid me market rate to do that. So it's not like they screwed me out of anything. Like it just like turned out to be more than
we got him.
Yeah, and I think it turned out to be a bigger hit than they thought too. So, it just is what it is.
Hey,
but I mean, the real winners for that I think were Tears for Fears, because they wrote that song originally, and then it just had this like renaissance, and they own all the back end on that.
Yeah, Tears for Fears cashed in on that one, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, we got one more question, and then I think we're gonna cut you loose here, bud, because it's been
Gotta get back to the babies.
Gotta get back to the babies, baby. Okay, Lucas, you are what I hope to be. Oh, that's nice. People have asked me to soundtrack. I just need to pay for a roof and food for people. Question: do you respect people that gave up dreams to take care of people? Oh,
okay. So first of all, I respect people on an individual basis. So I don't have like a blanket disrespect for any like class of people. So I treat people with the respect they treat me with generally, and I start very high.
You know who I don't respect? No, I'm not going to finish the sentence.
So let me just like disagree with the premise of that question, and then also say first of all, thank you, and that is like obviously very encouraging to hear and very kind words.
Oh, mighty, thank you so much. For that.
And I think that you're it depends on like what I want to say to you is that like because you're taking care of kids and taking care of people and, being a provider, like that doesn't mean that this door is closed to you forever, and there are certainly things you can do to stay in the game. There are also things you can do that in the music business that are extremely profitable. Most of them take place in Los Angeles. And this is one of the things that I tell people is that, like, if you live in, the middle of nowhere, if you live somewhere other than New York or LA or Austin or Nashville, and you are a music professional who makes money doing it, you are an anomaly, and so like it seems like Mike, it seems like you're an anomaly, like it's not like there's like a ton of people living where you live who are like, making awesome music all the time.
People don't come to Toledo, Ohio to make music and live make a living.
I would never say that you can't make a career living wherever you're living, because obviously you can, but you're an anomaly. And you're like, if you're not living in a place where this stuff happens, you're just making an already remote possibility more remote. So if you're like providing for your, I've got to provide for my family too, like I do, like there are gigs that come through the door that I maybe don't want to do, but like if they pay a lot, I got to do them.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I've gotten to the point where those gigs like often involve making music, but sometimes it's stuff that I'm not going to sign my name to at the end of the day. That happens, and there's I have a track in a Brexit commercial. I did it for a library. And one of the clauses in the library is that you waive moral rights. So like once you do it, they pay you and they can sync it wherever they want. Right. So and there was this
about that.
And this is, without going into the politics, I'll just say that the person in question was not a fan of Donald Trump. Yeah. And there was a video that he released that was like this, it was just this, like after January 6th, like it was like this video about like how great he was. And the music in it was a library track that someone I know wrote. And so I'm just like, man, like on the one hand, he probably got paid. Right. But on the other hand, like, it's hard to see your like work go towards something that, that you don't, in his case, something that he didn't believe in. So, but and just for the record, I'm not pro Brexit, but I did have some music in a Brexit commercial.
It just happened that way.
Yeah. I don't really have a dog in that fight particularly, but I think that who was the person who asked the question about?
That was Penny. Penny was asking the question.
Penny. Yeah, man, you're doing all right. Like, the most important thing you can do is have a family. And you can be an artist anytime, you got to work on it. You got to maintain your stuff. You got to maintain your network. You got to maintain your skills. But if you become the person who has a family, who like, has a sort of grown family, and you have like more time now to dedicate to your art and you have a little bit more experience, maybe that gives you an edge over someone who didn't do that, So I would say, mad respect. And like, also don't count yourself out just because what you're doing right now isn't exactly what you envisioned that you would be doing. Yeah. Life is fucking weird.
Very weird. Very weird. Yeah. I did not think I'd be back in Toledo, Ohio. I lived in San Diego for 13 years, and that's where I planned on living for the rest of my life. And now I'm back here. So
yeah, man. People don't move out of San Diego. Jeez,
it's hard.
That's paradise.
It's hard to get out of there, man. It's just it's also hard to be productive there too, because all you want to do is barbecue and like day drink. So it's like it's a weird place. Book Society is the podcast that you have, and I know we're gonna let you go here, but can you just give us a quick rundown just for anybody who might be interested in checking it out?
Yeah, it's podcast called Book Society. It's so every week I talk to a distinguished guest, either someone who you might know or someone who you should know, or just someone who I know who's cool. And the guest picks a book, I read it, the guest reads it, and we talk about it. And the idea is that it's I try to get them to pick something that they know a lot about, or a book that is foundational to them, and we just talk about it. And sometimes it is like pretty in-depth literary criticism, and sometimes we mention the name of the book and then just talk about something else. And but it's always an interesting guest, and it's a good time. And it started because I really like reading, and during the pandemic I found myself like talking about books with my friends on Zoom. And I was just like, I should just hit record and then edit these, and then we'll have podcasts. So
and that's what happened.
I've got some really good guests. Yesterday Friday, I interviewed a guy named George Dyson, who is a author and makes badarkas, and a badarka is like a Aleut kayak, and he's also a historian of technology, and he talks about the origin of computers and how computers were born and how they were made. in, they were really conceived at the Institute for Advanced Studies in Princeton. And he is an interesting person to do this because he is the son of Freeman Dyson, who is one of the central figures in the Manhattan Project, who was a lifetime resident of the Institute for Advanced Studies, and is really one of the scientists whose world we are living in today.
Wow.
And so it's a really interesting, he was a really interesting interview. He wrote some really great books that I like, and he's a really fun guy. So that's coming out in a couple of weeks.
That's amazing.
And yeah, back to the Bible hating, the last book, the episode that's coming out on Friday, it's a two-parter. The first part came out last Friday, was about a book called Some Mistakes of Moses, which was written by a man named Robert G. Ingersoll in the 1890s. And he used to travel the Chautauqua circuit talking about how, well, there are inconsistencies in the Bible. And he was making the same arguments that like Sam Harris and Daniel Dennett make 100 years before they were around. And like going into like, a Baptist church in Mississippi and like doing this speech, and just so it's interesting stuff. And he just goes through and catalogs like the Bible says this, and it also says this. So which one of these things is true? Like if you want to say you believe every word in the Bible, you have to answer these questions.
Right.
So it's interesting. It's interesting stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, and honestly, I find the Bible very interesting, and just in it, if you sort of like detach yourself from like, any kind of religious or moral attachment to it, you do find sort of these really interesting and ancient truths about just who humans are, and you probably know about Jordan Peterson, but like he does this really interesting breakdown of certain verses of the Bible, where he goes in and sort of gives his own sort of like critique and just sort of understanding of it. If you can separate, the controversy.
Yeah, I'm not touching any opinion on Jordan Peterson. So
I know.
God bless America. Let's just move on from that.
No worries. But I mean, man. I mean, as something to be taken literal, I have a hard time to get put my head around that. But as something to sort of like glean ancient truths about humanity, I think it's a great resource for that.
Yeah, if your favorite character in Game of Thrones is Ramsay Bolton, then you will love the Old Testament God.
Old Testament gods is your shit. Yeah, man, Ramsay or even Joffrey. God, my God.
Yeah, if you find yourself rooting for the Lannisters, then yeah, Yahweh is your dude.
Yahweh's your homie. All right. Dude, Lucas, this was so great. I had such a great time chatting with you, and thank you so much for your time and your insight and your good humor. I think you fit in perfectly here. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And man, again, how can people get a hold of you? And I'm going to drop your links in the show notes too.
Yeah, Book Society Pod is the Instagram that I have nothing to do with, but is related to my podcast. Because I previously said that I am really not on social media. But if you want to reach me, you want to argue with me about the Old Testament God, or talk to me about a book you read, or listen to my podcast and tell me what an idiot I am, or ask me about how your music is, or send me some of your music and I'll listen to it. You can do so through my website, which is lucascantormusic.com. So I encourage anyone to reach out to me, and it doesn't have to be a big thing. You just be like, hey, I heard you on this podcast. I wanted to ask you a question. That's simple. And then we'll have like a real connection. That'll be fun. This is what I'm trying out in 2021. We'll see if it works.
Why not, man?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? We did have one. What's your favorite recent read? There you go.
Oh, my favorite recent read. All right, I'm gonna look at my shelf. So I'm gonna cheat. Wonderworks. Wonderworks here. I'm gonna get it.
Okay.
So if you are into books and stories and history, Wonderworks, Angus Fletcher is it's brand new, and it is just a fantastic book. Another one I'm going to plug, because this is current. Angus is also going to be a guest on my podcast in a couple of weeks. And another one that I gave it away. So there's another book called Art and Fear, and I advise anyone who is an artist or wants to be an artist or thinks of themselves as an artist to read Art and Fear. It's 90 pages. It's been around for about 30 years, and my literary agent was a guest on my podcast, and that was the book he picked. So that's the episode with Peter Ruby, which was like, I don't know, 2 episodes ago. And the reason I gave it away is because someone in my neighborhood listens to the podcast, and they were just like, they literally just stopped me on the street and were like barking at me about this episode.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I just gave them my copy of the book.
That's amazing.
So yeah, Art and Fear as an old book, and Wonder Works as a current book. I highly recommend both of them.
The War of Art. I'm sure you're familiar with.
I'm familiar
Pressfield,
with
it. And then Stephen King's book, I thought, on writing was just absolutely amazing as well. Like, if anybody's ever interested in anything like that.
War of Art, I have some personal problems with. It's a whole nother podcast.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Well, I mean, that's the thing about these books is like you can look. They're presenting the information that works for them, and so if it's more just like glean what's useful for you, and then everything else, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But
if it was presented like that, then that would be fine.
Right.
But it's not presented like that.
Pressfield.
It's presented as like a system for, and like that's I have a problem with.
Well, you have a problem with it because you have a problem with like, having sort of a system in play in your life as well, right? Like,
no, I mean, I have a system. It's just I wouldn't recommend my system to other people. It's what works for me,
But...
And this is like I have a problem with. I mean, it's the whole charlatan mentality of like, you come to a town, you tell people I have a surefire way to do something, just buy my book, and then if it works for them, great, and if it doesn't, great. And the trick of fuck it, I'm gone, so who cares? But the trick with with all of these things is like with these courses is that once someone pays $2,500 to take your course, like if it works for them, they're going to say that it's great. If it doesn't work for them, they're going to be too embarrassed to say anything.
Yeah.
So it's a mean trick. And one of the things I do is I collect fountain pens, and you don't find bad reviews for fountain pens generally, because like good fountain pens are expensive. And once you've paid $150 for a pen, you don't want to tell the internet that it sucks and you got duped.
Yeah.
You just say what's good about it and move on with your life.
Yeah.
So I think that there's like just a huge selection bias in whether or not those things work. And I find them to be, uncomfortable at worst, or uncomfortable at best and irresponsible at worst.
Yeah, I could see that, especially like books like The Secret. Like that book is just like it's horrible. It's just like, I mean, it's interesting and there's some truths to like that, but like just putting your shit on a vision board and just sitting there waiting for the good times to roll in is stupid.
There's no truth to that. Like there's like the manifestation is visualization. Like it is an important part of is a very small important part of immediate success. Like if you're in the wings of a stage and you're about to go out, taking a deep breath and just picturing yourself doing a good job is great. However, like that's not going to get you to the point where you're at the wings of the stage. Right. Like that will get you from the curtain to the podium. That's not going to get you from your bedroom to the opera house or wherever you are. And like I a little bit like manifested, like I really wanted to do a TEDx talk. Like I really, I had done some talks at technology conferences, and I really wanted to do something in that style where it was like, just me on a stage and there wasn't a corporate sponsor. And I really wanted to do that. And I did find a way to do it, but it wasn't because I manifested the energy of wanting to do that. I did that to some degree, but I also had like some experience. I had a really good topic. I present well. I'm a good public speaker. It's a thing that I've worked on for many, many years. And like, so it was all like that had a lot more to do with it than the fact that I thought I could do this.
Yes, indeed.
So yeah, I have this conversation with my wife a lot because she also is big into manifestation. I'm like, yeah, I think probably what you manifested was, like you've been trying to get good at music. You've been working on music for 20 years. That's probably why it started to work out.
Yeah.
Not because you bought The Secret,
Exactly. Yeah. I know exactly when I started becoming successful at music, and it was when I quit drinking.
Word.
All right, Lucas, thank you so much. We could go all day. I'd love to have you back on again in the future if you're available. I mean, you're a busy guy, so but
I'm never too busy for this, man. This is fun.
Yeah, I had a blast, man. All right, well, Lucas, thank you so much for your time, and you have a great rest of your day, sir. And go out there and compose us something great, sir.
You too. Working on it.
All right, man.
All
Peace.
Right. I'll see you later.
All right. Bam. All right, Lucas Cantor, everybody. There he is. Give him some love. All right. I forgot to play games. Oh, I forgot to do the claps too. Okay, Reina, when do you have to teach? Do you have to teach at 6? We should probably end anyways. All right. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you for those claps, Reina Mystique. I did want to say a couple things. I have. Oh yeah, the Zoe magazine